Hey everyone, it's a random noob, and today I'm gonna make just like a vlog, just talk about the games that happen in PPL. If you haven't checked them out, they are on the Paladins Pro YouTube now. I'd probably stop watching this video because spoilers and stuff like that, because I'm gonna be talking about what happened in week one. I'll talk a little bit about my predictions, what I thought, what ended up happening, and just really talk about the teams, so we can finally talk about these rosters. And I've been kind of like waiting for this for so long. The first day of PPL just was awesome. Well, the first week actually, not the first day. But let's start into it. I'm just like gonna go through the esports.paladin site, and I also have like the stat sheets made by Gwinnikins. Shout out to him in the PW server. I'll throw a link to the stat sheets in the PW if you guys wanted to check it out. The PW is the Discord server. He linked it in, so feel free. It's got pretty much every stat from every game, as well as the maps. So it'll help me remember the maps, so I can talk about it a little bit. First off, it was Knights versus NIP, and it was a pretty entertaining set. It was a really good way to start off the season. I think we got to see two rosters that we didn't really know much about. We didn't really know exactly what they were going to give us on the first day, and ended up going 2-4 in favor of Ninja's Pajamas. I think that was pretty much expected. I think NIP was expected to win this, especially with the Knights' inexperience on LAN. The only person who really has a ton of LAN experience is Cuss, and Ricotta, G-Bunny, Dethroner, and Pan all really haven't played much LAN games. They played in the PWC qualifier event, but that's really nothing compared to most of the players in NIP, right? Birds played in tons of LANs. Even though that last year NIP really didn't qualify for many LANs. Well, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, NIP, the only person who's really played a lot of LANs in NIP is Bidner. NIP really didn't qualify for many LANs this last year. But I still think overall they're a higher quality team, so I think it was expected. If we look at the stats, we'll run through the maps real quick. I think Frog Isle was a throw as terms of from the PK's perspective. I think their comp was pretty good. I think both comps were pretty solid this game. The NIP side, they had the advantage with the Strix. I think PK had the really good comp with Drogo's Grover. I think Grover is really good on Frog. You can pretty much heal your whole team. It does get kind of iffy if you can't stand in the places you want to stand, which is what NIP did to them. But overall, I think there was just, some jitters from Pan. I think he had a lot of missed Drogo's ults on this map, a lot of questionable decisions from his Drogue. I think he played really well except for his ults, to be honest. I don't think he made many mistakes when he was just, playing normally. So I think when if he just cleaned up those ults, it might have been a different game. Ice Mines, I think NIP played that really well. I'm not going to go through every map. I'm just going to talk about ones that were interesting. I think the Knights getting map 3 was very important on Stone. What was their comp here? They just had Pip. I think the Pip worked really well that game, obviously, and Ricotta played really well on Cassie. What I found interesting in this set was how important Cassie was compared to the other sets. Definitely highly prioritized. It was pretty interesting to see that. I think a lot of the other sets, everyone was really prioritizing Leon. So to see Cassie, make such a big impact is pretty good. I mean, obviously they're the two most stable damages. They're just solid picks no matter what. But I do think it was interesting considering a lot of people are prioritizing Leon, including us, more than Cassie. So it was definitely interesting to see how Cassie played out. I also was pretty surprised with Alex's Bomb King play this set. I think he definitely proved he can play blasters fine. I really don't think BK is that strong of a champion. His win rate is pretty low this weekend. So shout out to Alex for playing really well on such a short notice. He really only joined NIP very shortly. He wasn't on NIP for long. I think in the last 3 weeks or something, because he's been playing for Clown Fiesta for a while, and it was very recent that that NIP ended up picking him up. So I think overall the set was very entertaining. It was really telling. NIP looked very strong. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see their second match against SSG because SSG had visa problems, but I think it was a really good, telling set. I think PK, the Pittsburgh Knights, got a lot of experience out of this game, even though they ended up losing, and I think they learned a lot from it. As we'll see in in the PK versus VP matchup, we talk about it later. Us versus Navi, I don't really want to go into this too much, obviously, because I don't want like talking about like my own sets. I don't want to give too many strats away, or what we were thinking. But it was pretty obvious that Phoenix was popping off on Tyra, as we had to end up banning it on Ice Mines. And Faye actually even asked me like, was that Tyra ban BM? And no, it wasn't. Like Tyra's really hard to get onto on Ice Mines, so we wanted to take it away, take a comfort pick away from Faye. Um, Overall, I think Zarini, I want to give a shout out to him because he played very well. Unfortunately, we couldn't play against the full Navi roster, but I think Zarini um, proved that he's a great, PPL player. I think, for me, he could probably fit on some PPL rosters right now. Um, so yeah, I really, Zarini was a cool dude too. I enjoyed hanging out with him, talking to him. He seemed like a really nice guy. So shout out to him. Unfortunately, Mutu wasn't there. Mutu is not off Navi, for people who are wondering that. Mutu is still on Navi. So fortunately, hopefully later in the season we get to play a full Navi. But I'm really happy with how we performed overall. I'm glad with how we played. I'm glad we didn't underestimate them because they had a sub. Because Navi, I don't care if they have a sub. 4 of their 5 players, they're still a top 2 team in the world in my opinion. 100%. Like, they're just such great players. So yeah, that's probably pretty much all I'm going to say about our matchup because, like I said, I don't want to give up too many strats when I'm talking about my own team because we want to stay at the top of the leaderboards. You know what I'm saying? We want to stay at the top. Moving on to Game 3, Kanga vs Renegades. Pretty interesting. I actually originally had Kanga winning this set. That was when Loki was playing. So Shadow, he's been playing really well in PML. I don't know if it would have changed my prediction. I think I still would have gone with Kanga just because the lack of practice Shadow had with the Renegades roster. It was really surprised with this. You know what? Moon played pretty well in off tank against, a bottom, in my opinion, probably the 8th team after we saw them. But he played pretty well. You got to respect it. I think Shadow and Vocal, as I didn't really talk about Shadow, obviously, because I didn't know he was playing until, like, the day before. But Invocal popped off. I mean, looking at his stats, 12-2, 18-4, 11-6, 9-8. What else? 8-4. Literally hasn't had a negative game yet. No negative games for the entire set, which is pretty awesome. Look, dude, Invocal, 72-28. I don't know if you guys can see that right here. Great stats out of him. Great stats. What a set. I mean, Shadow, in his own respect, 65-32. That's a pretty dynamic duo right there. Moon was positive. Hero was positive. Just pretty well played across the board from Renegades, that set. Specific maps, like, there was a lot of 4-3s this game, A lot of really close maps. 3 4-3s in the set, which is pretty solid. Pretty entertaining. It was entertaining. We got to see the Kanga set for the first time on LAN. Not the Kanga set. The Kanga team for the first time on LAN with the additions of Gera and Avuli. I think Avuli, I think just the whole team in general kind of looked unpracticed. I think over time they can get better, but like I said, I still think they're probably 7-8. I think Renegade, they definitely could beat, Renegades later in the season if they start gelling and playing together well. But it was pretty clear that they just really didn't know how to play around each other. Overall from Kanga, I think for the most part they played well. Like I don't think they played bad. I just think Renegades DPS players popped off and Moon played respectably, which I mean, Viral and Hero are always going to do what they do. So I think if that happens, Renegades is probably going to win, right? And I think this is pretty much common now, like not common knowledge, but commonly thought of as, the 7 versus 8, and whoever won this might be 7. But I mean, you never know. Like, I could see maybe if Renegades decides to pick up Shadow over Loki, that this team could maybe do something. I'm not necessarily recommending that. Mostly, I'm not going to talk about like roster changes and stuff like that. It's just, it is an interesting thought considering how good Shadow played, right? I mean, if I was Loki, I wouldn't be feeling good right now when I just look at Shadow popping off against what, I personally thought Kanga was the better team, skill-wise. So maybe with Shadow, that tips the scale to Renegade's favor. I don't know. I think that was a pretty telling matchup for both teams in terms of where they're going to fall in the standings towards the end of the season. And just I really, I'm really glad this Kanga team's in the PPL. I think OC deserves a spot. They've been, performing decently. Like, I don't think they're an amazing team by any means, but I really do love that like international feel with this league. Where just there's a teams from all over the world, so it's just good stuff from that. So moving on to the next day, my team Envy started off playing against Kanga. We ended up 4-0ing, and 3 of the games were 4-0. But I don't really think that credits how well Kanga played. Like, if you look at the stats, they didn't play terrible. You know, 61 and 130. That's not bad for getting 4-0'd in a set. I really think the games were closer than maybe the stat line shows, which I want to give credit to Kanga because they took a tough loss against Renegades yesterday and they bounced back pretty well. I think Avuli definitely played better this set than he did yesterday or the day before. So seeing that out of him was great because Avuli when I was coming up was kind of my idol a little bit. I looked up to him, so I want him to play well this season in his new home. I really want to see him perform well. I think for the most part, this is I enjoyed playing this set a lot. I got to play Androxus. Zin maybe really didn't feel as good, but playing Andro was really fun. I think it was pretty solid in that comp, and I got a lot of screen time, which is pretty sick. I mean, I'll take the screen time. Rock's always getting it, so let me get some of that screen time, Rock. I'll take some of that. Yeah, I got a good variety of champions. I didn't play Drogos for an entire set like I did against Navi, so it was pretty nice to get some variety. I also got that backdoor. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out in this game. It was pretty sick. Got a pretty awesome backdoor. The casters didn't even catch it, so it was pretty fun just hearing Gore being like, "What? Wait, what happened? Wait, why did Rubu ult? Oh, random noob push it in. Oh my god." Yeah, it was pretty cool. My dad enjoyed that play a lot. I got a text out of him. Shout out to my pops. So overall, I think the set was really good. Like I said, the 4-0 makes it look like the set was maybe a stomp, but I really think Kanga played well considering the situation. Like I said before, again when they played Renegades, they really didn't have much practice, right? They just didn't play together. They didn't have much time to gel. So I think as the season goes along, they'll definitely improve. I don't think they're gonna get 4-0'd often. I think I really do think this team has potential if they start to gel well. There's definitely solid pieces there. I think the Vuli and Gera pickups are upgrades overall. Getting Chronix back on DPS. I think losing was it Ninu, Ninum or Nina? I can't remember which one's the OC off the top of my head, but someone can answer that in the comments. But whoever he was, it sucks that we lost him because Kanga, he was a really good player for Kanga. But I think Avuli is an upgrade there because I think Avuli played. It just proved this set that he's still a really good player. He had 2 really good games on EV. He went 11-10 on Warder's Gate, which they almost beat us on. It was a 4-3 really close game. As well as pretty much even on Bright Marsh, which was a 4-0. So going even on a 4-0 is solid. He made my life difficult. So GG's to Kanga this week. Pretty fun set overall. Some cool stuff happened. I got to play Andro. I'm happy with that. I'm real happy when I get to play Andro. I love it. So yeah. Moving on to match 5, which was Renegades versus Navi. I think it looks like we're missing a screenshot here, which is unfortunate. But it ended up being a 4-0. That was kind of what was expected. I think I said it was a 4-0 in my predictions video. So pretty standard here. I think it was a lot closer than the 4-0 shows. Again, just like Kanga said, I think Navi proved that they can just abuse tanks. Like, look at game 1, 0 kills from Moon and Hero, and a lot of deaths. A lot of deaths. The DPS players definitely proved, they can hang with the top dogs in Vocal and Shadow. I think Moon didn't play great this set, but remember, guys, we're talking about Moon, like, it's easy to, crap on him when he had a really bad set against a top team, but gotta remember, like, look at our set against Navi, and Tulki got abused, the same way. Like, Navi plays really well against tanks, and they don't make tanks have a good day. Like, tanks do not feel good against Navi. I tell you guys that. Like, so, even though, like, the tank stats are maybe not that good, I mean, look at this Splitstone game. I mean, Moon played pretty well, 5-3. That's not bad. But I do want to say, like, just because the stats look bad for tanks doesn't mean anything. Like, look at Renegades actually had more kills at the end of the set. Like, they actually had more kills. That's actually insane. 97 to 89. Well, I guess there is a map missing, which is a 4-1. So maybe with that map, Renegades would have less kills. But still, I mean, that's a really close game for a 4-0. It's really close in KD wise. And honestly, like I said, like the tank stats don't look great, but Navi takes advantage of their tanks. They do not let tanks have fun games. Like I feel for the tanks that played against them this week, Tolki, Rubu, Moon, and Hero. I feel you guys because they just let the DPS players kind of roam and they just abuse tanks on point. You're not touching their cap. Like that's how Navi wins games. You cannot touch their cap. But overall, I think even though this is a 4, it was actually pretty entertaining. Which I think that is something to say about Paladins esports. Like the Kanga and Kanga versus us set and Renegades versus Navi were 4-0s, but I think they were entertaining 4-0s, and that's just proves how fun the esport is to watch for me. Like just when you can get entertained like that from just stomps, I think that really proves that it's a great esport, and just it's so much variety in the game and just so many cool things that can happen. So I think I just want to make a shout out to that because even in 4-0s, I'm having a great time watching Paladins esports, and I really don't think it's because I play it. I think it's just I really enjoy the esport, and I just want to share that love for it. So running into the last match, I think this was probably one of the best matches of the weekend, in my opinion. PK versus VP. So many entertaining games. Unfortunately, we don't have scoreboards in here yet because I guess they weren't released or something. I'm not exactly sure why they're not in, but so we can go to Paladins esports here. It was a 4-1 in favor of Pittsburgh Knights. This was actually not expected, I don't think. I think a lot of people thought VP were going to win. I think maybe if VP had Cephic Cloud, it might be a different story just because of how close these games are. And I know Cephic Cloud drafts for them. I'm 99% sure he drafts, or at least he helps with draft. And I think maybe a few things went differently in draft in a few of those games. I think there was a few picks later in the draft that VP could have went a different way, and I think that would help them a lot considering how close the games were. There was I think 3 of the 5 games were 4-3s, and VP were so close to winning 3 of those games. I easily could have seen this game go the distance just with a few different, literally all that changes is a few different picks in the drafts and stuff like that. I think this set goes game 7 just based on how the teams were playing. I think both teams were playing pretty solid. I want to shout out to G Bunny. He had a great set. I think it might have been his best set on LAN ever. So shout out to him. Dethroner definitely played really solid as well. Pan stats don't look great, but I think he had a great set. I think the nerves, definitely wore off. And Ricotta had probably, the best set of the teams. Actually, I think G Bunny played the best in this. So, shout out to G Bunny. I think Ricotta played good too. So overall, I think this is a pretty big win for the Knights. It's their first, in my opinion, real win on LAN against a good team. I think VP is definitely not out of it, though. I think they're going to bounce back. That was their first game of the season, and they have a sub in, right? I mean, Cephic Cloud's expected to come later once he gets his visa stuff figured out. And I just want to say real quick, it's really unfortunate that we have these visa issues because the league took so long to happen, and it's a LAN league. It's hard to make a LAN league happen. So I really want to shout out to Hi-Rez and Evil Mojo and Skillshot for allowing these teams to play with subs because it's just really hard to get a LAN league going. And for the most part, having this many teams playing with only one sub on these teams, I think it's pretty sick. I mean, I'm just glad to get Paladins esports going again, even if it's a sacrifice a few weeks of full teams because I think the games were still really entertaining. I think Pooley still played well. I think he didn't play great or anything. Obviously his team lost, and maybe if he played a little better, they win. But for the time that he had, I think he played good, and I think he gelled with the team well, for the most part. And honestly, I really want to see these teams throughout the later in the season, when they get time, just gel together. I know PK has had that time, but just even more time, right? Throughout the season, I want to see where these teams go. I could definitely see some shaking up in the standings with these two teams, and I'm just really excited for that. So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we talked about all the games. Week 1 was pretty awesome, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments. Who you guys are rooting for throughout the season? Who'd you enjoy the most to watch this weekend? And I hope you guys enjoyed the style of content because it was kind of just like chill. I just wanted to talk about the games a little bit and, you know, throw a video out there. So let me know what you guys think about this stuff. Just kind of like the chill vlog, just off the dome, thinking, stuff like that. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next vid. Peace.